So again, I just want to...
being recorded.
Okay. I want to thank everybody again for joining us for our Rural Studies University of Galway Rural Voices Seminar Series. I think we're on Series 9 at this stage, which is great. And it's been a great success for us and a great success for, I suppose, a platform for people to present their research or key aspects of rural enterprise or rural issues that are prevalent to people out there at the moment. So for us, it's started off and it has continued as a great platform to air any rural issues that we have our research at the moment. So again, as always, I want to thank the Department of Rural and Community Development, and we run this specifically in conjunction with the department. So I want to thank them again for working along with us. We have a lovely group of people with us today rather than one singular person. We asked Felicity, who is part of our higher education group that we have via the Department of Rural and Community Development. So Felicity was kind enough to come back to me saying that they would be happy to present. And then she brought a team of people with her, which was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And it changed the dynamic slightly for us. So I thought it was really interesting and really good. And I think it shows the possibilities we have around the Rural Voices Seminar Series, that we really can change the direction in which we present, the direction in which we can bring people on. And hopefully maybe as time moves on, we might even try a couple of face-to-face meetings, maybe into 2023. But for now, the online seminar series is working really well. And again, anybody who's out there who would like to try a different type of seminar, a different type of dynamic that Felicity is trying today, then you are absolutely more than welcome. Come on to us and we will absolutely try and fit you in. So Felicity is a professor of management practice in Southeast Technological University, and their presentation today is a collaboration and via a collaborative project that they have with Údarás na Gaeltachta. And it's funded by the Irish Research Council Enterprise Partnership Scheme and Údarás na Gaeltachta as well. So I'm going to let Felicity take over from there and introduce her team of people she has with her and tell us about the project and her presentation. So thank you very much, Felicity, and all of her people she has with her.
Great, thank you, Maura. I should admit to being in a school of business, so maybe that's where the delegation came in, that if we teach it, we may do it as well. But also more importantly, we really wanted to speak to you today when we were given this opportunity to speak to you about rural voices and all the voices that are within and amongst us as stakeholders in the rural communities, how we might perform research that is not only contributory to our own community of researchers, but contributory to the practice and particular to the practice of business, which we feel is our important role within particularly the technological universities as a rural regional development role that we hold. So I will share the screen in due course, but actually who I'd first like to introduce you to are my colleagues that are involved in this project, which is focused on bridging the peripheral business communities in a way that is true to their culture. And in particular, we are working with the Gaeltacht communities in liaison with Údarás na Gaeltachta. And we're looking at how to ensure that we protect their culture while also engaging and leveraging digital technologies in their businesses. And in order to do so, no one of us knew enough. So really, as always, necessity is the mother of invention. So I'm going to introduce each person that's here with us today, and we'll speak about their role in this project in turn. So firstly, if I could hand you over to Nadia Blanchfield, my close colleague in that she is an IRC research scholar under the Enterprise Partnership Scheme and is co-funded by Údarás na Gaeltachta. She's embedded in the Southeast Technological University research community, and I have the privilege of being her lead supervisor. Nadia.
Thank you, Felicity. So DE is Misha Nadia Blanchfield. As Felicity said, I am a PhD scholar at SETU, and funded by the Irish Research Council under the Enterprise Partnership Scheme and Údarás na Gaeltachta. So I'm a fluent Irish speaker. I attended Gaeltacht for 6 years for my secondary education, and then I continued my Irish studies on the Bachelor of Business with Irish in what was Waterford Institute of Technology and now SETU. So through my undergrad degree, I met Dr. Seamus Dillon, and it was about 2.5 years ago that Seamus contacted me and informed me about this project that was starting in SETU. So I applied, and that's led me to now just over 2 years into my PhD on this journey. So it was a perfect mixture for me of business and my interest in business development, and also incorporating my passion for the Irish language. And that's brought me today to this great team of supervisors who I would be lost without.
For all Nadia has to say that, I suppose, but in truth, she's an unusual hybrid that we really needed for this project, because we needed someone who was immersed enough in the culture to have both empathy and respect for the culture within. We don't want to strip away culture if we're putting in capabilities that are specific to digital development. So that was quite the balance that we needed to maintain. I'm embarrassed to say that despite the fact I was raised very near the Gaeltacht in the west of Ireland, I was remedial in my use of Irish. So Nadia and all of the Údarás team are working on me to try and improve that. So if I could introduce you to Fionnán from Údarás na Gaeltachta next.
And thank you, Felicity. Fionnán Ó is my name, and I'm working here in Dingle, or on Dangan Chúis. You can choose your own version, but I'm working here with the Research and Sectoral Development Division. That's a division we started about 5 or 6 years ago, and primarily to look at how we could source external funding for the organisation, how we could collaborate more with people outside of the Gaeltacht, HEIs, through European programs and other programs. And we've found it very useful to be involved with SETU and with other HEIs. So that's really my own background. I'm working out of our Dingle office, as I say. I'm deputising today for my colleague, Eamon O'Nachtan, who isn't available today. And I'll talk to you later on about some of the activities and projects we're involved with.
Thanks very much, Fionnán. And in terms of today and in terms of rural voices, we felt it's really important for people to appreciate how the other state and semi-state bodies are working in liaison with us, but that we are a support infrastructure then for these communities as opposed to vice versa. We're not trying to superimpose our perspective. We don't want to drown the community voice just because we've come together with an idea. So it's all about the co-creation of that. And that draws me to Dr. Eugene Crehan, who's a colleague of mine in SETU.
Hi, everybody, and glad to be here. And thanks for the introduction, Felicity. I work in the Centre for Enterprise Development and Regional Economy here at SETU in Waterford, where my primary focus, I suppose, is on developing early stage businesses and developing the skills necessary to plan and launch an early stage business. Prior to that, I worked in international business and would have conducted business in about 53, 55 international markets with the likes of Bailey's Irish Cream, AT Cross, who used to operate out of Ballinsloe, maybe some of you knew it, Waterford Crystal, and then some stints in the US and the Middle East with some companies. In recent years, I undertook doctoral research in the area of resource development in early stage high potential businesses. And that's proved very useful to me in working with early stage businesses in this region. As part of that activity, I've had discussions with Údarás about entrepreneurship development in the county and in Anring. that led to another opportunity to look at, it's something that planted the seeds to some of this research. So it's really great to be involved with it. It's an area of great interest to me. I think if we help entrepreneurs in Gaeltacht regions to leverage digital technologies while being true to their own culture, we can then progress them on to other supports and other developments, potential investment, and give them access to a bigger network and more supports in areas of enterprise development. That's how I got here, and delighted to be part of it all.
Great, thank you, Eugene. I should say that it was Eugene that contacted me. We're complementary in our skill rather than being the same in what our roles are. So Eugene is the New Frontiers Director as well, who works as a gateway for startup organizations throughout the region. In that work, he'll have engaged with businesses who are contemplating starting up, and in particular, those in the high potential startup area. Because I myself am a long-term researcher in rural business development, and I specifically work with small businesses and in their individual owner and manager capability development. Eugene and I have crossed paths a few times and we're still talking. So on that basis, you know, when this project opportunity came up, we realized that collectively we stand stronger as a potential resource that has the potential for sustainable resource into the Gaeltacht region, in particular in Waterford, but also that information, that knowledge that's generated in projects of this nature can be spread throughout the Gaeltachts with the ongoing collaboration with Údarás and Gaeltachta. Which brings me then to Seamus Dillon. Dr. Seamus Dillon is our colleague, the head of humanities in Southeast Technological University.
Yep, Dave, presumably you can hear me, can you? Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, speaking of technology, just before I came on, my laptop decided to crash, so I'm coming from my mobile phone, as they say, so I hope that it's loud and clear. Yeah, so as Felicity said, I'm the head of the Department of Humanities here in the Southeast Technological University, the Waterford campus, and I think Nadia mentioned as well that she was a student of Irish in this school, and a very good one at that. And I think we were delighted that I suppose at first when this project came up, because I think that at the moment, research all about impact and impacting communities, impacting various types of people. And I think in humanities, we're always looking for that kind of impact on the human, on the person, and how we can improve people's lives, I suppose. And I know that Felicity will speak later on about the principles of rural policy and that kind of thing. And I think that this collaboration between ourselves and the Department of Humanities and the School of Humanities and with the School of Business and with Údarás and Gaeltachta gives us that opportunity to have that impact both on people, but also on the rural economy, if you like, but also from my own point of view on the Gaeltacht and on Irish speakers. And I think that this collaboration is very good for us in humanities, but also I think we're delighted that we have Nadia on board. She mentioned herself there a few minutes ago about the coming together of her Irish interests, her language interests, and the business interests. And I think that is kind of, if you like, the backbone of this project, that collaboration, that combining of interests, that combining of disciplines to have that research impact. So I'll talk to you again in a few minutes. Thanks, Felicity.
Thanks very much, Seamus. And that gives you a feel for the totality of the team in this particular project. But the ethos behind collaboration is really what we wanted to talk about today, and that no one person can bring all the skills necessary to embed in these communities and to ensure voice is maintained within the community. Colleen has raised something interesting in the chat there around the reality of people leaving rural communities. So my heart lies in rural. I was raised on the side of a mountain in Kerry, and I've moved to an equivalent mountain in Waterford. So there's consistency there, and I stayed by water in both. But what I believe is that if I live in a community, I should contribute to it. And what Colleen is saying there is very important, because what we're trying to do is to provide the bedrock of resources to allow people choice to stay. And that's the piece that we're talking about here, is that if we offer a lens of resource and support in terms of their capability development that they maybe didn't realize they needed to compete successfully against all business, regardless of its location, that offers us real potential to ensure that those who wish to remain embedded in the cultures of our rural societies can do so without our influence to urbanize them. So that's the piece that's important here in terms of the collaboration. I didn't want to influence the Irish language because of my inability to learn it in school, despite my nearness to PEG. So that was really, and Eugene, you know, and myself spoke about this in detail. That was really what we wanted to ensure, was that we didn't diminish the culture because of our own inadequacies. And that's a piece of a researcher that we have to accept in terms of our boundaries. Okay, so I share the screen. That'll work, and I'll mostly act as what you call it, secretary for the remainder of this, because you know, you'll just nod at me as you need the slides, as the slides generated. I got this checked by Nadia and Fionnán and Seamus, but to do shorten the roles. So that's really what we're talking about today. And any questions you have, you're welcome to ask us as we progress. You've met us all. So yeah, they're great that they take decent photos, and then we do all sorts of Photoshop. So, you know, I don't look like that in real life now. But in reality, us in our totality have the potential to use an applied research project to legitimately help practice as well as extend practice-led theory. So that's really where we lie. We're applied researchers. We don't apologize for it. We consider ourselves part of the ecosystem. And our primary forms of methodology are case-based and action research. And I often say that action research is that I'm both nosy and interfering as an action researcher. So we do embed an intervention, and we watch the progress from pre and post measures to see what impact that embedded intervention has on an individual organization, but also on the ecosystem within which we are embedding it, in this case, in the rural community and non-RIN. So the purpose today is to tell the story we've traveled and how we've influenced each other, and how the fact that I now have a mug on my desk that's in Irish and they're trying to infiltrate every part of me, but more importantly, that I understand better the difference between rural and rural Gaeltacht. And I think if we walk away from today to understand the really important cultural role the Gaeltachts of Ireland are playing for us as an identity, for Irish as an identity, I think that that alone will give us a sense of what the purpose of a collaborative project of this nature is, and how it sits into the purpose of rural policy. As I mentioned, it's funded under the Irish Research Council's Enterprise Partnership Scheme. So any researchers listening, it is well worth looking at this scheme if you are embedded in particular rural communities, and it's something that can be considered for yourselves. If you have any queries on that, please let us know. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass to Nadia, who will walk through the project itself.
Thank you, Felicity. Yes, as we said, the title of this research project is Bridging Peripheral Business Communities Through Native Culture Engagement, Leveraging Digital Technologies. And this research, in this case, we have a particular focus on the peripheral business communities of the Gaeltacht. So what is on Gaeltacht? So according to Údarás na Gaeltachta, the term Gaeltacht describes the regions in Ireland that Irish is, or until recently was, the primary spoken language of the majority of the community. So we can say that Gaeltacht refers to the geographic areas where Irish is the living language of the community. So there's a total population of 96,000 in the Gaeltacht areas in Ireland, and they are predominantly situated in rural areas across 7 counties. So if we have the map here, starting at the top, we have Donegal, Mayo, Galway, Kerry, Cork, Waterford, and County Meath. If you see number 6 there, Port Larga at the bottom, that is the Waterford Gaeltacht of Gaeltacht Asia, in which this project is primarily focused. We've also spent some time in Dingle, on a pilot study, which was also a great experience, and also to kind of live in the Gaeltacht for a while. So that was very enjoyable. So that's Gaeltacht na Nature there. So digital technology on Gaeltacht. So digital technology has the ability to bridge the gap between Gaeltacht businesses and potential markets through online channels such as advertising and sales. And as the majority of Gaeltacht businesses are small and medium-sized enterprises, digitization has grown in these in recent years, which was especially evident during the COVID-19 pandemic. And in terms of digital transformation, so platform utilization capabilities are key drivers in digital transformation, and they highlight the benefit of taking advantage of platforms' potential to reach and stay close to customers. So here we take a dynamic capabilities perspective, and through this, digital transformation has the potential to create competitive advantage in Gaeltacht businesses. For the purpose of this study, we are defining dynamic capabilities as the strategic use of resources, specifically digital technology platforms, to build competitive advantage in the market. So as I said, Gaeltacht regions are predominantly situated in rural areas. Therefore, they face similar challenges, business communities face similar challenges to those in other rural business communities. And one such challenge is the urban-rural digital divide. So rural communities, such as Gaeltacht, have been failed by social technology design, and peripheral businesses are limited in their access to technology capability developments. This highlights the urban-rural digital divide that is experienced. This reduces the potential that digital technology can achieve in bridging the gap between peripheral businesses in the Gaeltacht and in markets beyond their physical location. And as Irish is the first language of the Gaeltacht, businesses may face a language barrier when using technologies. And often tools and resources in these minority languages are scarce or do not exist, compounding barriers to use. But despite these challenges, technology has the capacity to bridge this native culture gap and expand businesses within and beyond the community. This leads us to our research question. Thank you, Felicity. Which is, does a digital technology learning intervention influence how Gaeltacht business communities engage in technology use? Now, this is further underpinned by 3 additional questions, which are: what level of digital technology skill is exhibited in Gaeltacht business communities? How is digital technology used and activated in Gaeltacht business communities? And finally, what impact does digital technology capability development have on its use within Gaeltacht business communities? Now, to answer these questions, we have adopted the action research adapted from Sussman and Everett. So the action research cycle consists of stages of diagnosing, action planning, taking action, evaluating, and specifying learnings. So through the action research, we're proposing a culturally embedded digital technology training intervention. And this really is where the expertise of the whole supervisory team comes together. So I would take an observational role in this intervention and to kind of measure the advancements that will hopefully be seen throughout this research. So this intervention will be led and delivered by Felicity. So as we've mentioned, she's an expert in small business and rural business development. And Eugene will also be drawing from his expertise in enterprise and entrepreneurship. Appropriate experts in digital technologies will be included along the way to deliver specific training. As this research is set in the Gaeltacht, all communications will be offered bilingually, and this is really where Seamus' influence shines through in this research. So we work closely in all communications to ensure our Irish is suitable for each regional dialect as well. It's through Údarás's network that we introduced to these potential businesses in the Gaeltacht area to take part in this research project. So we can draw from the development officers, their experience in Gaeltacht business development, and also from their networks with their client companies along the way. And then for our anticipated contributions, we anticipate that this research will result in a diagnostic framework that will provide Irish-speaking Gaeltacht businesses, owners, with useful starting points in understanding how to develop and effectively deploy their digital technology capabilities and to transform socioeconomic activities into valuable strategic assets by optimised rural community engagement structure. We also hope that we will inform both Gaeltacht and rural development policy in the future. Thank you, Felicity.
Thanks very much, Nadia, and hopefully that gives you a sense of how this research is embedded in and of practice. Sorry, Eugene has decided to stop letting me. Just 1 second. There we go. So apologies that it just decided to freeze there on the other screen. In the context of all that Nadia has described, the capacity for us to immerse in this particular community is led by Údarás na Gaeltachta and their understanding of each of the communities, the nuances between them. So if I could pass over to Fionnán to describe the contribution from Údarás's perspective in terms of the project.
Thank you, Felicity. Good morning, Nadia, Felicity. As I say, few slides I'd like to share with you today, and the work Nadia is doing is very important to our work, because we all know the importance of digitization and other areas of that are required in modern day work. And how do you translate these digitization policies from a European level, from a national level, down to the rural level? And to Gaeltacht communities is very important. And I think the type of research that Nadia and her colleagues are doing there in collaboration with ourselves is vitally important, really, to assist people like myself and colleagues who are dealing with companies on a daily basis on how to go about this revolution or transformation that we all have to do in terms of digitization. So as a development agency, we've placed a very strong emphasis on capability development within the Gaeltacht over many years. And for instance, if you look at the development of TG Ceathair or Fionnán Ó, and that Údarás was involved with other bodies, with RTE initially, and then after that with NUIG and Acadh na HOllscoileachta in developing TV production courses and training directors and cameramen and sound people and all that. And we've seen the result of that, which, you know, had to happen over a long period of time, but it developed into a very valuable jobs, employment opportunities for people, particularly in the Galway Gaeltacht, but also in each of the other Gaeltacht areas. For instance, on Ryan Ring in Waterford, you have Nematon there, and that's the result of a long number of years of investment in skills development. So skills development, as I say, is vitally important. Our latest strategic plan emphasises that again in trying to provide opportunities and resources for individuals and companies to develop their own capabilities. So our training program at the moment, it targets a range of groups with a multitude of training and skills development measures, which range from apprenticeship levels up to PhD levels. As Felicity mentioned earlier on, the collaboration is the most important part. We might have a certain amount of a budget, but we're dependent no more than any other rural area or rural organisation on supports from the likes of the HEIs, from the ETBs, and from other state organisations. And I have to acknowledge publicly here today just that the support we've received through the RRDF programme, which in my nearly 20 years now working with Údarás, that has been of huge benefit Gaeltacht areas and also rural areas, because we never had such a scheme where we could access national funds of a significant amount for very important rural development projects. And I'd like to acknowledge their support for some very important projects we've managed to forward in the last couple of years. So our work involves collaboration and working in partnership with individuals, with community groups, with schools, with SMEs, as Nadia mentioned there, with the ETBs, and of course with the HEIs, who share an equal ambition to develop rural regeneration and rural regeneration in the areas they're responsible to. In addition to those target groups I've mentioned just there, it's also important for ourselves, myself and other staff members here, to develop our own capabilities and our capacity to deliver on the development objectives that we have. And hence we need to collaborate very closely with the HEI sector to have access to the most up-to-date research and to inform our approaches and to design new interventions in a changing world. So today I'll briefly outline a couple of examples of the work, and you might just return back a little bit, Felicity, there, just 2 slides there if you could, and the one previous to that. So just on one of the projects which Nadia is working under now, is that some years ago we set up a small budget, relatively small budget, to co-fund postgraduate research projects. Nadia's one, as you can see, is an example of those, but we are involved with other HEIs who serve the Gaeltacht areas, and looking at other things around tourism, particularly the Wild Atlantic Way, some genomics, a project with NUIG, and also projects on marine and renewable energy. We can move on to the next slide there, please. Another way we go about this is the funding of accredited training courses, which we try and deliver within the Gaeltacht if at all possible. And an example of a long-standing relationship we have with WIT, or a CTU now, is work we've done with Nematon, a local company I mentioned earlier on, who deliver a higher diploma in television and media production, Oscailge in Unryan in Ring in the Waterford Gaeltacht. Another one we've developed in recent years is sustainable tourism destination management with MTU or IT Tralee, and we've a network of about a dozen community development organisations who are developing innovative tourism projects in their own regions, and we have accreditation and the delivery of the programme with IT Tralee. Another very good example is with Europus, who are based in Cahararua in West Galway, with GMIT. They deliver a higher diploma in applied Irish and translation, and translators of Irish are in huge demand at the moment, particularly in Europe. And that project is, that training program or intervention is responding to that demand and creating opportunities for highly paid people, Gaeltacht people and Irish speakers to avail of those opportunities. And another kind of a project then we're involved with is with the CREW project, Creative Enterprise West, and also one that's aimed at the digital sector, and then Empower, which is aimed at female development and female entrepreneurship. So we have a range of other courses and projects that we co-fund with HEIs. Go on to the next one, please, Felicity. Finally there, this is where I spend most of my time working in recent years, is working with academic partners on EU-funded research projects. So living in a rural area, it's very important that we have access to up-to-date research and knowledge on various areas. So if you take, for instance, some of the traditional sectors that are in the Gaeltacht, like the marine sector, seaweed, and that we've run a number of projects with HEIs to research better ways of drying seaweed, of processing it, how to market it better, etc. We have another one for food producers there, for seafood producers, safer. On the digital side, given that that's our topic today, really, we have run one on Digi-to-Market, which looked at VR and AR and the use of those in companies, and we've carried out a number of pilot projects and developed 360 videos and things like that with a wide range of companies in the Gaeltacht. So that's just a quick taster of short taster of the type of work we're involved with HEIs in Údarás. And I'd like to thank the group again for inviting me to talk today.
Fionnán. Just to tie in what both Nadia, as a specific project where we'll have a direct intervention, and then up into all the work that Údarás na Gaeltacht are doing in terms of the culture of the Gaeltacht and the embedded development of the organisations within. I think it's important for us to think about rural policy in that wider space. So the Rural Futures document produced at Irish level talks openly about digital capability, and this is an attempt to ensure that it's embedded at ground level so that the policy translation into practice is one which allows for sustainable development of rural communities. But also, if we look to the OECD principles of rural policy, a project of this nature actually touches 5 of these. So it does look at the potential of the rural area and context and how we can maximize that. It looks at supporting entrepreneurship and job creation through not only ourselves as a research institute, but also through the New Frontiers ethos. We have capacity to strengthen the social, economic, ecological and cultural resilience here, and involvement of School of Humanities is an important involvement from our perspective. So while we're both under the auspices of social science, the business end of social science need to be conscious of the care to be taken of the cultural impact of our business lens. So while we may be able to exhibit economic success, for example, what is the social damage that we're doing of a particular economic success, and ensuring that we have the wisdom to listen to our wiser souls who comprehend the longitudinal nature of cultural erosion, which is far longer really in terms of if the opposite of return on investment is cost of investment, which is a far longer cost of investment than we can exhibit in purely economic terms. And then the last one is to look at this leverage in relation to the potential benefit from globalization trade, and in particular in this project, digitization. Also promoting inclusive development, very conscious of language here as an aspect, as an embedded aspect of this culture. So we're really trying to ensure that we don't take the voice away. And the voice of these individuals within the Gaeltacht, their primary language of communication is Irish, not English. And digitization, the primary language globally is English. And it's eroding more than Irish. It's eroding national languages across the world because that is the platform of all of the Internet of Things is the English language. So that consciousness here is particularly embedded in terms of inclusive development. I'm literally going to give you 1 minute because I do want you to speak to the others. And if you have any questions for me, you feel free to ask. So I've been about 22 years in the academic sector, but before that, it was about 15 years in the business sector. And I was raised in a family business in Kerry. Any of you who know me more than once know that I have a certain pride in being from Kerry, although I've lived longer in other places than there. And one thing that I recognized from being raised in that business was that we needed to know all the stakeholders, not just 1 or 2. And networking was a currency with which you could embed true progress And I've been looking at that as a currency since I joined this sector. So it's not by accident you're meeting 5 people today. And I know Nadia said myself and Eugene will be the primary education givers in this context, but Nadia, we probably won't, because the wisdom of those that are immersed in digitization and digital and omnichannel marketing and digital tools that can be used by these organizations are men and women more experienced than us. So we're very much in this type of research. It's as important who we know as what we know. And it's important for the communities to meet a number of us rather than saying so-and-so is the prophet that came in here. We would like that old adage to be truest when we leave, that those individuals believe they did it themselves and that we're not only dispensable, but invisible by the time we leave that community. So in order to do that, we're playing a quiet broker role, and we're mostly tapping people on shoulders as that knowledge broker. And we're looking at a knowledge exchange function as a fluid means through which we can move knowledge from our HEIs and from those individual experts in digital capability development and move that knowledge into the community, and in particular the champions of that community, so they can spread that news and that expertise in a way that allows learning to flow in an organic way so that these can remain sustainable learning communities well beyond this single intervention. So what we are doing is a digital technology research intervention to support enterprise development and Gaeltacht business communities while respecting strategic native cultural and language engagement, to put the linguistic on it, that we probably won't read out to the poor misfortunate business owners because they'll say, what does that mean in real life? This is kind of what I do for a living. So I do see myself as a conduit. I've often said I'm like an academic Lissun Varna, that I'm trying to ensure the right people know the right people and that they build strong relationships with each other, while embedding quietly that innovative best practice, ensuring that we're listening to the right people in organizations like Údarás and Gaeltachta, and that we're truly connected to the embeddedness and operationalization of strategy, and in particular of policy, such that policy can exhibit the impact in a way that allows us to engage not only at national level, but at European level. That gives us the opportunity as researchers to continue on our road, as well as building upon our voice as part of that rural community for the future. And then lastly, how did Nadia's view of the action research, how does it fold in here, and how do we act as support to Nadia? Nadia is our leading force here, and how do we act as support in context? So that capacity in context is that we can, as you know from what Nadia has said, our diagnosis is informed by Nadia's research. We're then using links in terms of action planning. We're using our links, the people we know, the roles we sit in, and our collective knowledge is leverage for the optimum intervention design. So we're trying to ensure that the limits of our individual intellectual skill does not create a limit in the project. So if we don't know, we find out who does. The next is around the taking action, which we're just on the cusp of, which is to trainers are drawn from our collective network, as I've described. Content and delivery mode is informed by Nadia's research and Údarás experience, but Nadia then is our honest broker because she observes all the interventions and isn't contaminated with trying to give a class, so that emotion is taken off the table, and it offers an opportunity for that non-participant view to be channeled through the action research cycle. Now, I don't know why it's doing that. So if I could hand over then to Eugene and Seamus as our final views in terms of stitching this project together as an example, and we'll leave time for questions at the end. Eugene, whenever you're ready.
Thanks very much, Felicity. Well, I think as Felicity and all the colleagues have said, our role here is to support the achievements of the research objectives and to bring our experience, be it career experience, research experience, skills we've gained, to supporting the interventions that are necessary and essential to this action research project. Some of the experience I'm bringing to this project I've alluded to earlier, and it's a career experience of working with international businesses and having a focus on the benefits of trading internationally and how that provides growth opportunities to both small and larger businesses and growing businesses, but also to the New Frontiers program that I manage. And it's one of 14 New Frontiers programs in the country, and it helps entrepreneurs, early stage businesses, to build skills that they don't have, to help them to plan and launch early stage businesses, to guide them through technology development within those new businesses, but also to leverage all technologies available to them to help them in the early stages of that business. So they're not starting with a blank canvas. And we're trying to afford the same opportunities to Gaeltacht-based businesses by helping them to leverage technology and to improve their own technology capabilities. I'll be drawing from my experience in international business and in working with the New Frontiers program. Also with working with tenants of the ARC Labs Research and Development Centre, where I'm based today. Through my work in the Centre for Entrepreneurship and external networks with the Enterprise Europe Network or Kinetic Lab, which is a science and pharma incubation unit in Waterford here. But just to tell you a little bit about my own research, I did research in the areas of how external investment can help early stage high potential businesses to develop their resource availability and how the development of those resources can help them to develop competitive advantage. And that's key to early stage businesses who are trying to box clever, to use technologies available to them and to grow their own capabilities. The funding, this is an overall picture of funding available to early stage businesses. And companies who come through the New Frontiers program have taken money at each of these stages, all the way up to an initial public offering. And if we look back to the performance of these companies over the previous funding cycle from 2016 to 21, 48 companies that we worked with have gone on to leverage additional investment of around 10 million and additional other state fundings of around 9.4 million. So it really leverages the cost of running programs like this and gives the Exchequer a wonderful return on the investment of supporting programs with this. And I would expect similar results over time with this current research project and its ability to influence and change through the action research cycles. Next, please, Felicity. And if we just kind of go to, Felicity mentioned that, we are acting as brokers. We're acting as brokers and supports to this research project. And I would definitely, on a daily basis, to see my role here as a broker. It's connecting people, funding agencies, investment community, early stage startups, research centers within the university, business associates within the wider community. And this is critical in getting things done together, and its support and very much supports the title of this presentation that together we get further and do better. So through bringing to bear our collective experiences, we can help communities and Gaeltacht entrepreneurs to empower themselves to learn. We can support them on their journey and help them build knowledge businesses, because we know that that's the trajectory of business growth in regions. And by leveraging the digital technologies, they break down the barriers, not just regionally, but internationally, to access markets, but also to draw knowledge and intelligence from those markets and respond to opportunities there. I think that it will create graduate employment opportunities in the region. I really hope it does, and giving people the skills to develop as entrepreneurs or as entrepreneurial leaders also gives them the opportunity to provide opportunities and career opportunities to others. So I think that's kind of how we would collectively use our experience. But one of the strongest points also is our ability to connect people into a network. And if I can give a very small example of something Nadia did recently, she went and visited Anring, and she visited Dangan, and she spent some time there, and it was really great to see how she looked at the businesses. The business were real people, and that was one thing I really liked about how she wrote up and what she did. But she became knowledgeable on the resources available in Údarás, and I was able to connect her to an entrepreneur based in Anring who's developing solar technology and converting that into hydrogen. And Nadia met with him and grew her own network and improved his network in the one go. So it's a very basic example of how networking works and can be replicated week in and week out. So thank you very much, Felicity.
Multitasking is a fallacy, even in women, so I've unmuted. Thank you very much, Eugene. And you've a sense now of how interconnected a project of this nature needs to be. So if I could conclude with Seamus.
Yep, thank you. Good morning, Felicity. So Dee Verisht, so back again, August Nichbadig Mishivrada, I won't keep you too long. So I suppose just as a kind of introductory comment, listening to Felicity when she mentioned about the economists and business people shouldn't forget the human aspect of research and the human aspect of the people that they're studying. Just thinking as well, I suppose, about the Gaeltacht, and that we shouldn't forget the contribution that can make to the business side of things as well. So we're coming from both sides, from a humanities perspective and a business perspective, and I think that as Eugene referred to is really what we're about at this project, is the coming together of and sharing of expertise, and through the vehicle, I suppose, of Nadia's action research. So just to mention, I suppose, that from the Irish point of view, the language point of view, that we have on Gaeilge as an academic subject here in SCTU since about 2009. And it was one of the first ITs at the time that would have had a degree, a full degree in Irish, as part of the BA honours programme. And we had it as an elective on other programs such as psychology, architecture, and business. And we did business with Irish. So from the very beginning, I suppose, of Irish in the university, and WIT as it was then, that meeting of the language and of business was evident. And Nadia came through that process, came through the business with Irish. And I think that hopefully, if I can maybe not putting words into her mouth, would have been maybe the start of her interest in research, and the start of thinking about the language, the start to think about communities, the start of thinking about business, and how all of those things go together. My own research, I suppose, centres around the Irish language and the Irish language revival, particularly, I suppose, in the 19th century, particularly as well amongst communities in America and other places outside of Ireland. And I think that word community again coming through, an Irish-speaking community, an Irish-speaking group of people. And I think at the time it was the Gaelic League who would have been promoting Irish, promoting as a spoken language, and trying to get, I suppose, the country to be bilingual and to speak Irish more often. And I think we can maybe juxtapose that today, I suppose, with the Údarás, but promoting Irish through business, promoting Irish through research, promoting Irish through cooperation with education and with other aspects of Irish life. And particularly, I suppose, when we think about communities, the connections between Waterford in the southeast and Tallavaneish or Newfoundland, and again, all about community and building communities. And I think that's the kind of point that we want to emphasize today as well, about the idea of a community and promoting communities. Also building on research that's already been carried out. So we're not alone, as it were, as regards research into the Gaeltacht and Gaeltacht Nation. People such as Antolov Padraig O'Machan from UCC, and they have online a research journalist in Irish based in Ring as well. But I think what's new about this particular project is I suppose the innovation and the interdisciplinary nature of it. And I think Felicity mentioned earlier on about the OECD and the principles of rural policy. And I keep thinking about that, leveraging unique assets of each rural region. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to, I suppose, to help rural areas to be the best that they possibly can. For a small subject, if you like, within a big university, we're here for about 10, 11, 12 years. This will be our second PhD research based on Gaeltacht in Rin, in An Rhein. We had Chris McAuliffe, who did Iarracht Ceoil na Naoise, the musical heritage of the Daisha, which was co-supervised by myself and Dr. Colette Maloney. So, you know, I suppose we're continually trying to add to the research. Our colleague mentioned there about Údarás na Gaeltachta and mentioned about the links with the HEIs, and Fionnán mentioned the higher diploma in TV production. And again, that's we're really proud of. We're really proud of and lucky, I suppose, with her links with Údarás na Gaeltachta and creating that innovation and adding to both the studies here in SETU, but also and hopefully also to the Gaeltacht. My current role is Head of Department of Humanities, Tourism, Hospitality and Culinary Programs. And again, within that, particularly at the moment, we're looking at the Southeast, looking at communities, looking at how we can respond to the tourism demand of the region. And even if you think about Ireland's ancient East and where Waterford and the Southeast and the Gaeltacht lie in Ireland's ancient East, and the whole idea of the ancient East telling stories, and it's probably telling stories about ourselves. I often try and tell that to Nadia, and we often talk about research being a story. So we're telling a story and we're trying to kind of spread the word, if you like, about the research. And finally, now we're SETU since the beginning of May, and we're working on our new strategy. And part of that strategy, which I'm trying to add to, is our civic and cultural and regional dimension. And I think it's important that SETU, by research projects such as this, I suppose, can become both an anchor and an advocate for the region. And I think the importance of Nadia's research it can't be understated, I suppose, or overstated in that regard. And in that regard too, like, I suppose to thank my colleagues, to Eugene, Felicity, and Eamon, and from the Údarás and Fionnán, who's here today on behalf of the Údarás. I think we can put that emphasis on the peripheral communities both through business, but also through the cultural engagement of the region. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Seamus, and thanks to everyone for your contributions. I suppose shin on scale, as they'd say at home, and if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer you today or in the future.
Yeah, Felicity, thanks a million, and thanks to all of you. It's so interesting to see the collaboration between all of you, and to see the collaboration between Údarás na Gaeltachta particularly, and the universities, and all of the other things that you talked about there. You know, the digital brokers idea, the new frontiers, particularly interesting as well. Having that language is a key aspect still of all of those communities, as well as, you know, the importance of keeping the community and telling that story, but yet making sure that the Irish language is part of it all. It's all really, really interesting. And it's something I think we'll all definitely be keeping an eye on as we go forward. I think we're particularly tight on time, and we have been, I suppose we have tried to make sure that we kept to time. So as Felicity said, we will be, she will, I'm sure, once we put up the presentations, we will, I'm sure, allow people to connect directly with Felicity to answer any questions. But if there's one or two very direct questions, and we might run a couple of minutes over and have a direct question or two from the people directly, if Aisling or Louise might come in with one.
Sure, I can.
Yeah, Sinead, are you there? Right. Do you want to ask your own question?
Yes, Sinead is with us, so maybe Sinead might come in directly herself.
Hi everyone, Sinead Quinn here from the Department of Rural and Community Development. very good presentations there and really interesting projects. So thanks to all of the speakers today. Our department has responsibility for the oversight of our rural future policy, and we recognize the value of collaboration. So it was really in research, and it was really interesting to hear how this collaboration came about for this particular piece of research. And we recognize the value of research for policy, sustainable rural development policy. So my question really is, are there particular areas of policy that you think your research will influence and will support in the future? Thank you.
Sure, Sinead, thank you very much for your question. And as Maura mentioned, I'm on the committee that your department has in relation to rural futures. And an aspect of this project came from thinking about what that document has to say and what the underlying policy has to say. So one aspect that we feel we will influence is the aspect of comprehending what we mean by digital access, because there's been an emphasis on broadband, for example, and that's not an issue. The tangible connectivity in Anrin is not an issue. Broadband is particularly good in that community. But that's only one step in the journey to digitization and the use of it as a leverage or as a resource, a tangible resource in sustainable business development. And we recognize, based on that policy, we recognize a gap is in the capability development that's targeted on the specifics of digital capability, digitization capability development, which goes beyond the use of a computer. So digitization is the strategic upper level capability use of digitization and the Internet of Things to not only connect with further consumers, but to connect in a way that retains memory of that product, to generate loyalty, to leverage diaspora, to embed the cultural nuances of both language and Gaeltacht in ethos, such that the Gaeltachts, in those who live in the Gaeltachts and those who once lived in the Gaeltachts, can remain connected through products and service. So that's one of the areas that will heavily influence, we believe, with this kind of research.
Felicity, thanks a million. And unfortunately, we don't really have too much more time for questions. But again, I'm sure Felicity and Údarás, the people who have spoken today, I'm sure they'll be able to connect with you for any further questions that you might want answered. But for now, I want to most definitely thank Felicity Kelliher from, again, the Southeast Technological University. I want to thank Fionnán Ó, who spoke earlier as well, Nadia Blanchfield, Eugene, Crehan, Seamus, Dillon, and so the full team of people, both from Údarás and Gaeltacht, and again, the Southeast Technological University. Again, a really interesting collaborative project that I think is exactly where we all need to go. I think this idea of past silos of us all working on our own really needs to come to an end. I think what we can do together is much better than what we can do on our own. So I think on that collaborative kind of note, again, Felicity, thanks you very, very much. And thanks to everybody for joining us today. Again, as always, thanks to the Department of Rural and Community Development for collaborating with us on the seminar, the Rural Voices seminar series. And we have a little bit of freedom between now and Christmas. So it's very early, I suppose, to be wishing everybody a very good and happy and peaceful Christmas. But until we see you again in January, and we've already got a number of people lined up for next year. So we're delighted to be able to go back again in January with some really interesting Rural Voices seminars. So again, thank you very much to Felicity and all of the other people who spoke today. Garmina Magat, and goodbye for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Garmagav.